file. So if you do Fernandez, it's been a while since he has been here as the Khateeb, so and I
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله إلا كافة للناس بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه العزيز: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وصابروا على يقولون وحجرهم حجرا جميلا. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. All praises are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him as He ought to be praised, and we send our salutations and peace and blessings on His beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Honored gathering, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, and has created us not only in this world but among the ummah of the beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed us in this world so that we can go through the tests and trials, and also during these tests and trials to remember Allah, to have patience, and to withstand these tests and trials for the pleasure of Allah, for the truth of Islam, and for the way of the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These tests and trials can come in different forms and in different ways. For example, we may have tests and trials from natural disasters and calamities, but at the same time, we can also have tests and trials from disbelievers and unbelievers who ridicule and taunt and abuse the believers. The khutbah today, a very simple message. When we can stand the torments and the ridicules and the torture and the punishment for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of the deen, for the sake of truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran that He elevates such person. That person becomes elevated when we can face the trials and tribulations for the sake of Allah. And perhaps in this world today, it might be easier to be a Muslim than in the early days of Islam. In the early days of Islam, it was very difficult to become Muslim. And more so, the concept of a one God was very alien. And for a man to come and to bring a message to worship the one true Creator was an astonishing message. Especially in Makkah, which housed 360 idols. To accept this call, he was speaking against what is happening in Makkah. And in speaking about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bilal was right there. And Umayyah mentioned that this man, this prophet who claimed to be a prophet, is speaking about one God. And we have in our midst so many. And that struck Bilal. Bilal received or accepted Islam through the words of Umayyah. So you see, when Allah wants to guide you, Allah put things in place for that guidance. And Bilal was no ordinary slave. His father was Arab, his mother was Ethiopian, and then he himself grew up in Makkah, and they were all enslaved. And Bilal ended up in the home or in the house of Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And when he accepted Islam, Islam entered into his heart. It was known immediately, and the torments and the persecution and the torture began. And you know, my dear brothers and sisters, the wish of a slave, the desire, the ambition of a slave is to be freed. He doesn't need money. He wants to be freed from this bondage that he is in. And when he declared his Islam, the torments and the persecution began immediately. And as I said, when you bear the torments and when you bear the persecution for the sake of Allah, Allah elevates you. And it could happen to all of us today in the world. May not be like Bilal, but we have our own experiences in torture and torment and ridiculing and abuse. Bear with patience, and Allah SWT will elevate you. I want to take you through this little short story of Bilal radiallahu anhu. When the persecution started, and we all know how he was persecuted, eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, go to Bilal, purchase him and set him free. So his first desire, Bilal's first desire was to become freed. And look how Allah SWT began the elevation of Bilal radiallahu anhu. And Abu Bakr came, and he came to Umayyah and said, how much do you charge? How much will you charge me for this slave? I want to release this slave. And Umayyah said 10 dinars. Abu Bakr immediately gave him the 10 dinars. And Umayyah said, you know, Abu Bakr, if you had asked for 1 dinar, if you had asked me for an offer, I would have said 1 dinar. Abu Bakr said, if you had asked me for 100 dinars, I would have given it to you. Look at the value of a Muslim. Look at the value of a slave who was from Abyssinia or Ethiopia. And then, so you see, Bilal got his first gift from Allah to be freed. When you struggle in the path of Allah, Allah honors you. And his emancipation was no ordinary emancipation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have sent anybody for that matter to have sympathy and rahmah on Bilal. But Allah chose to send Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And Abu Bakr, by consensus, he is the greatest of creation after the prophets. So you see, when Allah wants to elevate you, He sends and He elevates you. And then, after his freedom, look at that. Just yesterday, he was under the torment and the persecution and the torture. And today, he is sitting next to the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Elevation. When you struggle and when you are steadfast in the cause of Allah, Allah elevates you. And now he is a Sahabi in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after being through those torments and persecution. And you know, it didn't stop there. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the migration from Makkah to Medina, in Medina, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose no other person, no other individual but Bilal to be his treasurer. And many times he will tell Bilal, oh Bilal, take this person to Baitul Mal and give him such and such, give him such and such. Take that person and give him such and such money. Confidence that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had on Bilal. And today, those very said people of today, the kings of Arabia today, they will not call his name. They will not say Bilal except by saying radiyallahu anhu. Elevation from Allah to the slave that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had chosen, and now in the company of the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the masjid in the prophets in Medina was built. Look at elevation. When you remain steadfast, when you bear the punishment and the torture, there's nothing else from Allah except elevation. The masjid has been built, and of all the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the same Bilal ibn Rabah, to pronounce the azan for the call to prayer. So you see, elevation to the highest level. We call the azan. In millions of masajid today around the world, the azan has been called. And the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you do a righteous deed, when you perform a righteous action, you get the reward for that. And all those who do it after you, you will continue to get the reward. Today, in millions of masajids across the globe, millions of people is calling the azan which was delivered by Bilal radiallahu anhu. He is dead and gone, but yet in his accounts, these days are piling up in his account for what he has done and what we are following him today. Not only that, in Fath Makkah, in the conquest of Makkah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again chose Bilal, not just to go inside of the Kaaba, but also to go on top of the Kaaba and proclaim the azan. Bilal was the first person to call the azan in Medina, the first person to call the azan in Makkah, and later on in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, when at the conquest of Jerusalem, Umar told Bilal, go and call the azan in Jerusalem. First person. Look at the elevation. When you remain steadfast in the path of Allah. But that did not end there. And then, so you can see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving Bilal the goodness of this life, of this world. And then one day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Bilal, "O Bilal, I heard your footsteps in Jannah. O Bilal, I heard your footsteps in Jannah." Now look, he already had the greatness of this world, the blessings of this world. And now, Rasulullah has given him the great tidings in the life hereafter. So you see, if we look at our own self today, many of us here, if not all of us, have been through some situations of, calamities, torment, torture, abuse. Perhaps within our own families, we have this sort of tests and trials, right? We don't want our wives to wear hijab, or the wives don't want the husband to go to masjid. All these tests and trials, bear with patience. You might be a young sister in the university, and you want to wear your hijab, but you look around, there's nobody. So you feel embarrassed, you feel frightened, you feel some sort of despair. The tests and trials. You might be a person in your work environment, you want to pray when the time comes, but nobody praying, just you. So you have this fear within yourself. Bear with patience. And many of us would have experienced this, I can speak for myself. Many of us would have experienced this sort of thing in our lives. In our workplace, in our homes. And you bear with patience, and today you see the reality that Allah has elevated you. Allah has elevated you because you have stuck and bear with patience whatever come your way. And so Rasulullah ﷺ told Bilal, I heard your footsteps in Jannah, giving him the glad tidings of the next life. And time passes and the beloved Messenger ﷺ passed away. Bilal migrate from Medina and live somewhere in Syria, married. He's now sick on his deathbed, and his wife is next to him. His wife is next to him, and his wife is saddened. In a little while, I will be a widow. In a short while, my husband, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is about to die. And she is saddened by that, and she is lamenting and talking. And Bilal is listening on his deathbed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the strength and the courage to say to his wife, don't be sad. Don't be sad. Tomorrow, just tomorrow, after today, after this little hurdle, after this little sickness, just tomorrow, I will be in the company of the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I will be in the company of the companions of the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So you see, my dear brothers and sisters, patience brings elevation. In the early days of Islam, the ayat I recited in the beginning of the khutbah, وَاصْبِرُوا عَلَى يَقُولُونَ وَهُمْ وَجُرُهُمْ مَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. Bear with patience what they say. Bear with patience what they do to you. Put your trust in Allah. Put your faith in Allah. And there's nothing else but elevation will become in your life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a deep understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to bear patience in this time and this period in which we are living in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring all of our families together in His way and in His submission and in His commands. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for all of our shortcomings. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a special place in His paradise, Jannatul Firdaus. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وكل ذنب أستغفره إنه غفور رحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد بعدد من صلوا وصام. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد بعدد من قعد وقام. وصل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى كل ملائكة المقربين وعلى عباد الله الصالحين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. عباد الله رحمكم الله. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأعز وأجل وأتم وأحم وأكبر. أقيموا الصلاة. Show up your lines are straight and fill up the spaces.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. اللهم آمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا جنة مع الأبرار عزيز غفار يا رب العالمين. رب اجعل لي مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين.